Okay, so we're going to go over a lot of problems from this homework today. All right, so starting with number 1. Remember, there are times that we are allowed to add markings to our pictures. And the most common times are when we have a shared side. It's called reflexive property of equality. And the other time is when we have vertical angles. Because the vertical angle theorem works no matter where you are, what the circumstance is. So this one is one of the times when we're allowed to add angle markings because of the vertical angle theorem. You don't have to write that yet, but when we do proofs later this week, you will need to write that it's the vertical angle theorem. Anyways, okay, so are these congruent or not? We look at the evidence. Oh, I have 2 angles and 1 side. Now look at where that tick mark is. You ask yourself, is that tick mark between the arcs or not between the arcs? Look at the space between the arcs. There's no tick mark there. So that tick mark is not between the arcs. So I'm not going to put the letter S between the letter A. It doesn't go between because the tick mark's not between the arcs. So it's angle, angle, side. And triangle ABC, 1 arc, no arcs, 2 arcs. 1, no, 2. So when I name the other one, I'm going to do 1 arc, no arcs, and then of course end with my 2 arcs. So pay attention to how the first one's named and follow suit for the second one. Number 7. Number 7 is an example of an additional time I can add markings to my picture. And number 7, those are arrows. Those are not tick marks, they are arrows. It does not mean AC is congruent to BD. It means that they are parallel. They're parallel. So what I taught my students to do is extend your parallel lines and find yourself a transversal. Extend, make your parallel lines longer, and find a transversal. Sometimes you'll have corresponding angles, sometimes it'll be alternate interior angles. Those are the main ones you're going to use, corresponding and alternate interior. I am allowed to add markings to my picture. I'm allowed to add them because of the alternate interior angle theorem. I can also add a tick mark to BC because of the reflexive property of equality. And so now I have enough data. I have enough evidence. Look, I've got an angle, and I've got a side. You ask yourself once again, is that tick mark between my angles? It's either between or not between. No, it's not between the angles. It's not on AC. So my answer is the same as number 1. Don't put the letter S between the letter A. Angle, angle, side. And now we need to name it correctly. ABC is congruent to triangle. Well, A has a 90. So I need to pick the one that has a 90. ABC. So it'd be D, C, B. Order matters. Number 10. More parallel lines. So I either get a highlighter or I get my pencil and I just make them bold. Alternate interior angles and reflective property. Those are the things I'm allowed to add. I don't add stuff just because I feel like it or they look congruent. I add it because of certain reasons. Now, this one's different because they had a tick mark and an arrow on the same side. So we need to look. They're not only parallel, they're congruent and parallel. Look at where the arc is. Look at where the angle is. Is it between the sides or not? Look at where those sides intersect. Is the arc where the sides intersect? Yeah. Is it between the sides? Yes. So side, angle, side is my answer. There's an angle marking between my tick marks. And then we name it, let's see, ABC, across 1 tick mark across nothing. So I want to go across 1 tick mark across nothing. C, G, A. Moving right along, number 13. Number 13, you're finding all the parallel line ones. Number 13, we've got 2 sets of parallel lines this time. I want you to pick 1 set of parallel lines and find 1 transversal and work with that only. Remember how I said you'd probably use alternate interior or corresponding? Here's where you use corresponding. This angle is corresponding to this angle. If I were to draw it over here just to show you, it looks like this. Sometimes you need to draw it outside the picture to see the congruency. That's all I can do with those parallel lines. So now I'm going to look at my other set. I get a different highlighter out or a different colored pencil. Same transversal. A new set of corresponding angles. And then this tick mark was already there. This tick mark was already there. So there's my angle, side angle. Triangle ABC. Make sure you go in order. Same order. CBE. All right. 13 is done. 14 is next. Okay. 14. Can I add anything to my picture? Well, I don't have parallel lines, so I can't add alternate interior angles. But I do have two sets where I have two isosceles triangles. When we have an isosceles triangle, there is a theorem that says, it's called the isosceles triangle theorem, if two sides of a triangle are congruent, then the angles opposite are congruent. And I don't know if I'm going to use that theorem or not, but as a student, I'm going to go ahead and mark that on my picture. Here's where we run into the problem. Yes, the base angles are congruent in each of those triangles, but are they congruent to each other? And that's what we have this at the very end of our lesson. Not all isosceles triangles are congruent to each other. Those angles could be anything they want to be. So even though these two match, this one matches this one, and this one matches this one, no one's to say that the pairs match each other. So that's why we put not possible on both of those. Okay. 17. Oh, sorry, 15. You need a 15 as well. I'm going to work this one really quickly. Boom, alternate interior angle. Look here, alternate interior angle, and tick mark. Angle, side angle. All right, 16. These are the good ones. These are a little bit more K-level ones. What else must we know in order for the triangles to be congruent by the reason listed? So let's look at number 16. We want to use side, side, side. We have to use side, side, side. We know that CO is congruent to PI. Add a tick mark to your picture. OW is congruent to IG. Add a tick mark to your picture. They couldn't have made this any more easy on us. We have to use side, side, side. So what else must we know? We have to know that that third side is congruent to the third side, oops, that's a P, sorry, of the other triangle. You have to use the congruent symbol. You can't just put comma. I want CW, comma, PG. You have to write it in precise mathematical language. So be careful there. Okay, 17. Mark what we know. CW is congruent to PG. Check. OW is congruent to IG. Check. And we have to use side angle side. All right, well, we already have our two sides. We need an angle. And it's a specific angle. It can't just be any angle. We need the angle that is between the two sides. So we need W and G. You don't just say, I need W and G. I mean, I've had students write that before. You have to write it precisely. We need, in order to complete this problem, we need arcs on those angles. Arcs mean congruency. So we need angle W to be congruent to angle G. And that's the only way you're allowed to write that answer.